So good morning, Buffalo. How are we doing? Good. Okay, so today we're here to talk about chaos, which is a really fun topic and really important to my life. So I think first and foremost, let me introduce, yes, chaos, C-H-A-O-S. Now, why am I here to talk about chaos? What makes me qualified to talk about chaos? Well, for starters, talk about my current life. I am an attorney for a corporation that operates in 9 different countries. There were originally 2 attorneys. One just recently resigned, so it's me for the last month, which is really fun. At the same time that I'm doing that, I'm responsible for organizing Curtain Up, which is a huge event downtown, a 3-part event. At the same time that that's going on, I also have Buffalo Startup Weekend, which I help sponsor. Yay! And I'm involved in a huge career change, which I'll get to in a minute. So, needless to say, my present life today specifically, because I have to leave right after this to organize the dinner and everything, is incredibly chaotic. But, more important than that, chaos for me, like many of us who are creative people, has been a big drive in my life and a big important component of my life. I like to say that I kind of have a relationship with chaos. Not always a good one, not always a bad one, but it exists and it's inevitable. Now, before we get to chaos and my personal story with chaos, I want to kind of hone in on what I'm talking about with chaos. So for starters, am I talking about chaos theory? No, not at all. That's that higher theory. Many of you know the handsome Jeff Goldblum talked a lot about that in Jurassic Park. But instead, I'm going to be approaching it from more of just a general, simple layman's chaos. All of us know what chaos really is. We have some inkling of what it is. We've all experienced it. We know how it feels. You know, I mean, one perhaps perfect visual example of chaos is Jackson Pollock. So this beautiful painting, I love Jackson Pollock. To me, he exemplifies chaos in a beautiful form on a canvas. I mean, it's just a smattering of paint of all different types, different colors, thrown about in this completely insane, not even pattern, just all over the place. How many of you have children? Yeah, congratulations. They're also chaotic. Children essentially are little magical, wonderful bundles of freaking chaos. I mean, every single day is different. You have no idea what they're going to do next. Frankly, when I found this photograph, I don't even know why you would let them in front of a Christmas tree like this. It's probably the dumbest thing you can do. Giving them ornaments. Little Timmy is not just going to put that on the tree. He's going to pull down the entire tree. But nevertheless, parents trust them all the time in little ways here and there, knowing that they're going to just wreak havoc on your lives at some point. But we love them still. And perhaps another more contemporary form of chaos is something that you can bring about by thinking of other children. I don't even know why he's singing in this. I can't remember. I think he had some sort of reason, but he's singing with Kim Jong-un. So welcome to 2018, where that's your president and that's your ally. It's a really fun place to live in. So pretty much all of us, whether you're parents, whether you're artists, whether you're just citizens of the world, you've experienced chaos in one form or another. So to put some words on the board, again, I'm not going to come up with a completely clear definition because we don't need one for chaos. Also, it's chaos, so why would I do that? Let's keep this chaotic. These are some of the words to think about. So unexpected events, things that pop up completely out of nowhere and change everything for you. A pile of incompatible components. So if you're an engineer, an architect, and you do architecty or engineering things, you might be given the task of putting together things that just don't make sense, but your client wants you to. Random occurrences, similar to unexpected events, but I just wanted more words up there. Democracy. Democracy, as much as we like to believe that it's completely a wonderful structure, which it can be, it also can be an incredibly chaotic thing. We're trusting tons and tons of random people to come to some sort of decision together, which sometimes results in Trump. A load of responsibilities with no experience to reference. This one is a little bit more personal to me. I have no experience whatsoever organizing events, let alone a dinner that's $100 a plate, let alone an entire street party. But I did it. It's a mess. It's going to happen. Everyone's going to enjoy it. How many of you have had to plan a wedding before? And you definitely understand chaos. I mean, most people plan your wedding without any prior experience. And when you don't have that experience, it's extremely chaotic, but you get through it. And multiple fonts on one slide. Those of you designers in the room, I'm sure you already saw that. So the first question that I really want to approach, and sort of the theme for this, and the main question that I want to dive into, is chaos good or bad? And more importantly, is chaos actually good or bad? Does it have to be either one? And to explore that, I think one of the ways to think about it is not so much whether chaos itself is good or bad, but really how you approach it and your relationship to it. So do you escape from it whenever it comes to you? When your children are running at you with messy, muddy hands, do you run out of the other room? Do you use chaos? Another way to look at it is, do you use chaos to escape from your own life and from your own issues? Another way to relate to chaos is to confront it. And I guess another term would be to embrace it. So these are two different ways that I think you can think of relating to chaos. And for me in my own life, and I'm sure most of you, I've done both at one time or another throughout my life. So we'll start with chapter 1, escaping. So for me, I'm going to flip through my cards here a little bit. So for me, most of my life, I used chaos as an escape. Specifically, when it came to relationships, and sometimes that ugly point in between relationships. You know, gonna get a little personal here. Most of my life, I had really crappy relationships, not completely their fault. Oftentimes it was faults of my own. Sometimes they were abusive, sometimes they were just incompatible, but most of the time they didn't work. And for me, in between every single relationship, I always found myself in a completely dark place that I never really understood. You know, here I am now, have gone through law school, I'm a lawyer, everyone thinks that's this big deal. It's really not. That's the secret, by the way, to being a lawyer. You just tell people you're a lawyer, they go, ooh. It's just like any other person. You just make a lot of decisions with Esquire after it. But, you know, with that going on, everyone sort of thought, you know, you should be really confident in between these moments, but I wasn't. So there are two ways that I would escape from my own darkness. The first one was just a general one, which was making myself incredibly busy. And you probably caught that. I still do that to this day. I know. We'll get to that in a minute. The other way that I escaped was through acting and theater. I developed a relationship with acting at a very, very young age, around the age of 9. I did my first professional production. And for me, acting was a way to escape. It was a way to not have to be me. I could take on a new character, take on a new storyline, become a different person, live this totally different life, and be some incredible human being that I didn't feel that I was. And eventually, I turned that escape into a career, believe it or not. So at one point in my life, I went off to acting school in New York City, became a professional actor for about 8 years, did Off-Broadway, did Law and Order, which a lot of people do as extras and things like that. Third Watch, did a series of films. Across the Universe was one of them. Worked with Playwrights Horizons and Off-Broadway as well, and kept using that as an escape. So there's a constant cycle of going back and forth between terrible relationships to getting a production, escaping, getting happy again, and then falling back into that complete pit. Now, when it came to the relationships, I noticed over time that they became worse and worse, either more abusive or just I was getting more and more attached to these relationships when I shouldn't have. And simultaneously, my acting work and my craft got better and better. I was putting more and more energy into that stage because I couldn't find myself in my real life, but on the stage, I was capable of finding that person to one degree or another. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be understood. I wanted to be confident. I wanted people to see me for who I was, but ironically, I was using the stage where I wasn't really myself to get that. Within that period of time, I also understood somewhere inside of me there was a leader. somewhere inside of me there was someone that wanted to come out and be myself. And by the way, when I say come out, I am gay, by the way, full disclosure. That happened a lot before that though, so whatever. But I didn't know how to find that human being. And the entire time I kept consistently using chaos, taking on events, taking on responsibility, taking on show after show after show, even when I didn't have time to do it, taking on shifts at the restaurant as a way to escape what I was feeling inside. So eventually I realized that I was kind of addicted to these bad relationships. I think some of us can relate to that, especially when you're in your teenage years. You want the bad boy, you want the bad person, you want to be the person that can kind of fix them. And when that carries into adulthood, you almost get addicted to playing that role all the time, and it becomes incredibly difficult to break the cycle of. And as I said, theater became my escape, and chaos became my escape, and chaos kept hiding me from the truth. So, what was really going on inside? Eventually, I found a therapist. Yay. It's awesome. Therapy's really good. If you haven't done it, try it. It's pretty awesome. Better than vitamins usually. So the first therapist I found had told me one day, you might have an identity crisis. I said, oh, come on. I'm in law school. I'm like at the peak of my 20s. I'm looking good. I'm feeling good. I'm fine. I don't have an identity crisis. I thought identity crisis was when you thought you were a dog or something like that. And I knew I was a human. So come on, I was fine. But he kept telling me, no, you're not dealing with something deeper inside. I don't know what that is, but there's something that you're not dealing with because you keep this pattern of being depressed and falling into a complete pit and then getting really busy during those times to make yourself happy again and then falling back in that pit again, and it's stalled you for most of your life. So you're basically using chaos to escape from all of that. And what's crazier is that identity crisis inside of me was a chaos in and of itself. So I was using chaos to escape my own inevitable chaos that I needed to confront. So the second part of my life, which really kind of starts 4 years ago, but I'm going to actually go back a little bit further. In my 20s, I was also a bit of a painter. I did show at one gallery, nothing special, was in New York, really cool. Didn't sell anything ever, but that's okay. I keep all this stuff in my apartment and like in a storage unit. It's pretty awesome. When I painted, my paintings, I often focused on something that was a bit more structured. So for those of you who know Kandinsky, that was who I absolutely fell in love with. The idea of being able to take simple structures and simple colors and create just something totally meditative and dive into that was just wonderful to me. But every time I would paint, I would feel a little bit angry at the end of it. And didn't know what was going on, but I just kept going with it. So finally one night when I was about 21 years old, I was in my apartment, really not happy, really depressed, in one of those pits again, and I grabbed a canvas and I grabbed some paint, and for that night and that night only, I let go. I let all of the rage, every anger, every frustration, that frustration that you feel within a relationship that's bad, where you're blaming yourself but you're blaming them and everything, and I painted this. Now, at the time, this made me really uncomfortable. All I could see in this painting was a mess all the way around this thing in the middle. And that mess to me felt like complete and absolute chaos that I didn't know was there inside of me, but it was. And when I saw that white dot in the middle, to me, that was a light at the end of the tunnel, and I wasn't gonna get there. So what did I do with that painting? I didn't hang it up, surprise, surprise. Instead, I actually put it in a bag and then in a box and hid it in the back of my closet. My mom found it. And moms have a certain intuition that I don't think they even realize sometimes. So my mom finds this painting and she takes it and she hangs it up in our house. without telling me. And I don't live at home at the time. So 4 years ago, I come home and I find this painting in our kitchen, and my mom says to me, "It's my favorite one, it's so beautiful, I love this one." And I'm sitting there going, "But I was so upset and depressed then, why are you reminding me of that?" So I convinced her to give it to me, and back in a bag, and back in a box it went, and into my apartment in Buffalo. So 4 years ago I moved here, and this was when I decided that I needed to confront something. I had my last terrible, abusive, awful relationship. I was getting involved in all sorts of things. I was exhausted all the time. I was not understanding where my career was going. My legal career was going nowhere. My acting career was going nowhere. My painting career was in a closet. So that wasn't gonna go anywhere. And I needed to do something. And it took one of the probably most painful moments of my life, which was when I was in my apartment and I wanted to end everything. Luckily, I was more concerned about what my friends would think, and I didn't want to do them to them. But I also just didn't know what I was doing and took a whole bunch of melatonin to just go to sleep. That doesn't do anything, by the way. And the next day, I finally got an actual serious psychoanalyst. Talked to my parents about it, got it, and for the last 2.5 years, I've been working with her through everything. And what I finally did was confronted everything that was going on inside of me. It started with cutting out the poison, cutting out people that I didn't need in my life anymore, cutting out people that hurt me, all of those different things, cutting out bad relationships and anything surrounding those relationships. But on top of that, a question still stood. Well, what are you going to do with all of the chaos that you've taken on to hide from all that stuff? So did I stop being involved in things? Did I stop volunteering through this process? No. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I embraced the chaos that I had created myself. I continued to run Curtain Up for another year. I continued to be overly involved in everything. And what that actually did to me by embracing that was it exhausted me. And once I became completely, fully exhausted, I opened up to the chaos and opened up to myself, and every single wall and barrier came down. So The Secret, not The Secret like that book, not that secret. So one of the things that I think that's important is that when you find chaos, whether it be your children freaking out, whether it be relationships in your life going terribly, whether it be events in your life that are just out of control, or whether it be our country, oh God, right now, the best thing you can do is embrace it. When you think about Jackson Pollock, that's what he did. He embraced the chaos of jazz music. He embraced the chaos of his own life, and he painted some of the most incredible, vivid, beautiful paintings. When you're a parent and you think of the chaos that you're dealing with your children, you don't run out of the room. You embrace the hell out of it and love every single stinking moment of it. And when it comes to your own life, that's what you need to do. Because sometimes chaos can do something completely different for you. Chaos is always going to be there. It is not good and it is not bad. Chaos just is. It's a natural fact and part of life. So, what happened with my chaos ultimately? What happened with my identity crisis? What happened with all these things? Well, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a diplomat. I wanted to travel the world. I don't think I even understood what that meant at the time, but I did. And I dove so hardcore into theater and into my creative side, which was not a problem. You should embrace that part of you as well. But I dove so hardcore into that part of my life and into that escape, and creating that chaos made it so that I blinded myself to that part that was within me, that leader that was within me. 2.5 years ago, in a moment of clarity, at the beginning of all of this, I applied for a position with the State Department of the United States. And after 2.5 years of processing, I'm proud to say that in 2 months, I'll be moving to do that. Now, the other thing that I want to point out about this is that besides that being my own happy journey, I think for creative people, we are too often told that your brain is all over the place. There's too much chaos inside of there. Your brain doesn't work this way, it works that way. You shouldn't do this, you should do that. Why are you getting involved in this thing? You should be doing this other thing. Come on, you're just a painter, you're just a dancer, you're just a singer, you're just an architect, you're just whatever. But they never let us get involved. And what I'm telling you is that for me, I discovered that chaos was my strength. During the interview process for this career, they asked me all about these things. They interviewed my therapist, believe it or not. It happens. And it actually was why they chose me. These days, more than ever, there is so much chaos in the world. And these days, more than ever, we need people who understand chaos, who understand the emotions of chaos, who understand how to embrace it and find creative ways to work through it. So despite everything going on in your life and everything going on in the world, take on more. Embrace the chaos, enjoy the chaos, and let it be that cocoon that takes you onto something else. It is the storm before the calm.